Good morning. Okay, so it is mid-March, and here in the UK, in the Northwest, because we've had so much rain, golf courses are still closed. But that has made me a bit of an expert when it comes to at-home practice setups. And in this video, I'm going to explain why I think this is the perfect home setup and practice net for you to practice at home. Okay, so I'll start with probably the most important part of this, which is the net. So I have the FORB golf net, and this is definitely the net that I would recommend to pretty much everyone, and I'll explain the main reasons why. So number one is because of this. If you're using a launch monitor to practice at home, then you usually need between like 8 and 12 feet in front of the golf ball, between there and the net that you're hitting into, in order to get like accurate results. So for here, if I just pace off from the middle of the green, you've got like 1, 2, 3, about 4 paces, which is again going to be between that 9 to 12 feet range. And obviously the distance that you need varies a little bit depending on the launch monitor that you're using. There are two main types of launch monitors that people will use. You'll either have optical ones that use cameras, or Doppler, which use Doppler radar to track the golf ball. So if you have a camera-based one, the sort of two main ones would be the Foresight, so either the GC3 Bushnell Pro, GC Quad, or the SkyTrack. Then that sits just around here in front of the golf ball, obviously, and takes photos as you hit it. So if you have that, then you don't need anywhere near as much space behind or in front of the golf ball when you're hitting it. But those ones, I mean, the SkyTrack is like $2,000 to $3,000. And then obviously, you know, the Bushnell, depending on, there's loads of different ways you can buy it, obviously with subscriptions, but all in cost is kind of like 7,000 to 8,000. And then GC Quad, I think, is like $15,000 to $20,000. So the vast majority of people are going to be using Doppler radars. So that would be either the PRGR, the Garmin R10, the Rapsodo that I have, the Mevo Plus, you know, any of those, they're all Doppler based. Some of them use cameras as well, like this one, but it does still need that space in front of the golf ball. So if you're wondering why that would matter, basically the reason is because the further away, obviously, from the kind of net that you are, the easier it becomes to miss the net, right? And for example, if I just hit a wedge now, so this is me hitting like a lofted wedge, you can see that that went into the roof of the net and not actually into that front barrier. So because I need distance between me and the net to actually hit the shot in the first place, it means if I'm hitting, you know, anything sort of pitching wedge or higher loft than that, it means that I am going to be hitting it up above where that net is. So if there's any chance of either skying your driver or hitting any of those, then just having a net up in front of me, the distance that my launch monitor would need, would mean that I'm going to miss it, even good shots, not right and left, going over top of it. So this allows me to still practice my wedges without firing them over the top of the sheet. Of course, that's not only just important with the height. When it comes to side, this panel has definitely got a lot more use than I would like to admit. Either if you just practice a lot, unfortunately, even tour pros manage to hit, you know, dreaded shanks. And if you're working on something, maybe you're working with a coach, you are going to probably hit some shanks. And so having these side panels, particularly, as I say, for me as a right-handed golfer, having one there, it just absolutely does catch them. You'll see a lot of different videos online of people, you know, shanking it, missing the screen that they have set up, and then it hits something solid and the ball can go absolutely anywhere. So obviously I wouldn't want to be hitting that fence, hitting those trees, hitting this little wall that's down there. So having this side panel is super important. And you'll see quite a few where they might have, you know, a little one that kind of goes up from the top down to the side. But for me, I just absolutely want to have that added security of having this here. So even if you're an accomplished golfer, obviously my fiance that I've done a couple of videos with as well is kind of a beginner. So then it's super important to have this set up. But even if you do play and practice a lot, you're working on things, I think it's a really, really positive thing to have. And it's definitely something that I would always want in a practice net that I have. So I've explained why I think that this type of practice net is the best, with the kind of roof and the side panels and the depth to it. I think this one is like maybe 3 meters by 3 meters by 3 meters in terms of the size of it. Why specifically this one? So what I really like about this one is that basically it's pop-up. And so I can take this thing down in maybe like 5 minutes. To put it back up again is maybe like 8 to 10 minutes. So if you have, family, you have kids, maybe you only get access to the garden, you can't just leave it set up there, then this one is really, really good. It's quite heavy when it's all taken down. So you're not really going to want to cart. It does come with like a travel case thing. You're not really going to want to cart it around an awful lot, but it is really good for being able to take it down, put it back up, put it in your shed maybe. As I say, if you can't just kind of leave your setup. Obviously for mine, I can have it just set up. And then I just take it down if we have visitors, and you'll see that it's got kind of like tent ties here around the sides of it. So for that, I just have that tied up in a few different corners, and because it's a net, basically even when it's really windy or stormy here, I don't have any issues with the thing kind of blowing away or moving around, so I can just leave mine set up. But it is really good for, as I say, for us whenever we have people around, or if you have families, that you can just take it down and put it back up as and when you want to. So this is an added extra. This is referred to as a baffle net. And I put this here because if you have ever had, warm-up nets at your golf course that you use a lot, or had a practice net, the nets will eventually break. And so if you're like me and you're kind of packed in around neighbors, I don't want one time when I hit my driver for it to go straight through the net, eventually it break, and that golf ball to end up firing through and smashing someone's window, or pointing at my own house and putting it through one of my own windows. So I would really advise to get one of these more expensive baffle nets to put in there as well. So, the vast majority of your shots are going to be smashing into this. It's much stronger. Now, it will still eventually break, but when a ball does eventually go through this one, it will then hit the net of the FORB golf net. And so then I'll obviously be able to see that there's a hole. I can get a replacement, and the first time it breaks, it won't be going through and smashing a window, similar to videos that you've probably seen online, someone hitting it straight through their net and smashing one of their windows. So this is how the net usually comes. You can see that it comes with kind of this impact screen, just this netting impact screen, which is much looser, just to make sure that it kind of doesn't turn it into a trampoline and send the ball firing back quickly at you. And then it's obviously got this kind of second net layer behind it to make it that little bit safer. And for me, this one has actually worked really well. As I say, I mainly use the baffle net just as an added safety precaution. So you can see the net works really well on its own. I just use the baffle net as an added safety precaution. It really only takes me like a minute or so to actually set that up. So it's definitely something that I would recommend. But this does still have 2 layers of netting for kind of safety to prevent any issues. As you can see, the ball comes back to you, but it doesn't come, firing back like a trampoline. And so, yeah, it does work really well on its own. And you can get the replacement netting for it, which again is another big plus when I was looking. So, you don't have to buy a whole new net when it breaks. You don't have to buy all the frame and everything. So, yeah, that's another added bonus. So I've explained why I think that this really is the best kind of practice net setup that you can have, both for its utility and for the kind of safety that it provides. The other main point that I would touch on would be on the mat, if you're considering getting one. So this is the first mat that I bought. It was about £50, and I thought it was going to be pretty decent in terms of size. But if I turn it around, and you can see basically that after hitting it, this was maybe after like a couple of months of use, you can see that basically it just destroyed all of the rubber that was on the bottom of the mat. And basically, one, it just left rubber things absolutely all over the putting green, so I had to hoover it in between each use. But also then it just kind of started ripping, and every time you hit a shot, you would basically get this effect where you have the mat is kind of mounding up, which meant in between each and every shot, you'd have to go around, kind of flatten, try and straighten the mat back out. And after hitting a few shots, you would find that the mat just would start moving. So if I were to stand here, hit 5 and 10 shots, you'd basically find that I'd start moving around where I was. And so if you're using a launch monitor, especially one like a Mevo, Rapsodo, Garmin, any of those where you kind of have it lined up with a specific target, it's really frustrating when you have a mat that keeps moving around, because obviously you're then not going to be aligned. The ball might not be in the same place. So I decided that after a couple of months of using it to upgrade and basically go for a more expensive mat with a rubber base. So that means when I am using it with my launch monitor, I can put the golf ball down in the same place every time. I know I'm going to be lined up in the same place every time. And it's just made practice with the launch monitor so much easier and so much more enjoyable. As I say, that one was getting pretty frustrating to keep using. It was just so thin. Time you'd hit it, the whole thing would crumple together. Yeah, and so it just became quite annoying to use. So yeah, definitely much happier I went for this one. This one I'm going to say was probably like £300-400, so it'll probably be similar in terms of dollars. So yeah, you can get some cheaper alternatives, but from my experience, I really would advise getting a better and sort of proper mat, because yeah, having one like that, it's not going to last very long. It keeps moving around. Yeah, so we definitely go for that one. So there we go, that is it. I've been using this like almost daily, maybe every other day for a handful of months now, and I am incredibly happy with it. So I've had other setups in the past, but this one I think works fantastically with the launch monitor that I have. It really gives me the peace of mind to be able to practice, and has just made it so much more enjoyable since we're not able to go to the golf course. But let me know whether you have a similar net or a different one, like a single screen one, what your experiences have been. Yeah, and whether this is something that you would recommend, or whether you have any other kind of changes, tweaks, suggestions that you would make for your setup. If you did like the video, if you would consider liking, commenting, and or subscribing, I'd be massively appreciated, because it really does change the number of people that YouTube shows the video to. But that's all from me. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.